They have no idea where we are, who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from.
Hey!
And this is the best of the best. Wow. That is football.
Well, it looks like we're back with another episode of the Chop Shop. I was clicking the button for us to show up on the screen, and you know what, StreamYard? You make it easy for everyone except for me. Because I'm Ronnie Evans, and I'm the host of the Chop Shop, and I don't understand technology. I'm also joined by Jeff DiMatteo, founder of Gridiron Ratings. We're here to talk about what was a pretty eventful week yet again in this 2020 NFL season. Jeff, what's going on? Any off the cuff remarks about this past week, the past 16 games?
Oh man, this week was kind of weird. It's kind of crazy. There's some interesting talking points that apply to pretty much any league. I think right now we'd be a little remiss to not mention the most pressing thing on the docket, and that's Taysom Hill's tight end status. It's probably not.
It's all. I looked at Twitter at 3 in the afternoon today. I'm sitting there. Let's see what's on in the Twitterverse. My entire home feed is just everyone Taysom Hill, Taysom Hill. His position's wrong. And
2 snaps as a tight end. 2.
I get it. It's broken. He's breaking the game. Now here's what I think, Jeff. You brought this up to me off air this afternoon. And you said we should talk about this because a lot of people are having different opinions, so I'll let you say your piece. But my piece on it, because I am if my life was a D&D game, I would be hardcore down the chaos lane. And so I look at a guy like Taysom Hill, and he's breaking conventional old school norms. I kind of like it.
He's everything Tim Tebow was supposed to be, but
kind
Tim
of like
Tebow
how
refused to be a tight end.
nonsensical. Yeah, I like how, if I can use foul language for a second, I like how it's total bullshit. I'm a big fan of that. So I'm getting I have a little icon here that says my connection's a little unstable. So if I
you're a little choppy, which is fitting for the Chop Shop. We seem to have some chop.
Let me just put my laptop in my lap.
Try and get that angle right so signal meets the router better.
Yeah.
Professional outlet here, folks. Good thing we don't have any live viewers.
Well, I got a new desk and it has metal in the shelving on it, and I think that's actually messing up the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, 100% is 100%. Metal and Wi-Fi are not great bedfellows.
Nope. Anyway, so yeah, the Taysom Hill thing is it's fascinating because he is I didn't lose to him. I didn't play him. I didn't own him this week. So I was unaffected entirely in 9 leagues by the Taysom Hill shenanigans. So when you brought it up to me earlier today, I'll be honest, it was one of the things I had kind of been overlooking because it just didn't affect me at all. And I thought back on it and I was like, oh, that's right. He had 17 touchdowns.
Yeah, I accidentally played him in a dynasty league. I've got a team I adopted. It was pretty late in the process, so it's a complete shit show of a roster. And so I got Taysom Hill plugged in as a flex, let you know how bad this roster was. And sure enough, he goes absolutely ham sticks for 40 points. And, I still lost because the team's terrible. But it was just funny to me because I was thinking about it. I was like, man, how many people are going to go add Taysom Hill this week, plug him in as a tight end, and they're effectively getting a third running back in their starting lineup. That's nuts to me. And so I know in one of my key league, my home keeper league, I already talked to 6 other owners, including myself, that's 7 to get a majority vote here. We actually instituted a rule that he can only be played as a flex. We are not allowing him to be rostered and started as a tight end. You can bring him onto your roster, it'll say tight end, but if he's in your starting lineup, he has to be a flex. And I think a lot of leagues should do that. What's that?
Cowards.
I mean, here's the thing. some of these guys are absolute cheat codes in a way that it doesn't make any sense. And Taysom Hill has 2 snaps as a tight end. 2. That's not right. If you're telling me that it just happens to come down to some sheer luck BS that some guy happens to have the number 1 waiver priority, or he just happens to win the bid because he threw his whole fab at Taysom Hill, like, cool, you get to have an extra running back? Like, that's not right. It's not like he's actually playing tight end and getting carries. He's playing quarterback, getting carries, and then he's playing running back. Like, he's not even playing tight end. Like, if he was at least lining up as a tight end more frequently, I could be like, that's the game. Good luck, deal with it. But dude's not even playing tight end.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think maybe people need to play. There's a new form of fantasy next year that's retroactive leagues. And it's like for everyone that wants to own Geno Smith and Taysom, or not Geno Smith, Debo Samuel and Taysom Hill, and wants to go full on, balls to the wall with it. You don't get to know what position the player is until the week's over, and it's determined by what position they took the most snaps at. And then at the end of the week, if you had Taysom Hill in as your tight end, well, sucks for you, dude. You don't get those points, and whoever's on your bench comes in for a tight end.
Oh, man, that sounds terrible.
It would just add so much risk to it. I think it would be miserable and awesome at the same time.
It takes a special level of degenerate to play in that kind of league, I think. Mm-hmm. And I'm a degenerate. Like, I added.
Did you hear about John Hamm's league?
No. Yeah, I did. The one that we was talking about on the Manning cast.
Yeah, where it's 13 guys, and then you find out on draft day if you're in or not.
That's kind of awesome.
Yeah, I think that's pretty great. I would be down to do that because honestly, like, it would be I would get so mad for a little bit, but then I would realize that I just have more free time that season because you're going to be back in that league the next season. It's not like you're gone forever.
True.
So that's cool. I like that type of stuff. Anyway,
that is cool. Anyway, back to Taysom Hill. So here's the thing: if you're going to go out and you're going to spend some fab on him, a lot of leagues probably aren't going to do anything about him, and he's probably going to end up being a tight end. This is still a boomer bust play. Like, I mean, do you really see any staying power with the way he's currently touching the ball when Jameis comes back?
I'll give you an example of a place where Taysom Hill sounds great as
Best
an owner. Our Dynasty League, our home league that we play together in.
Now the Pigskin Empire.
I have it's the Pigskin Empire, a try-hard name right there. And I've got Cole Kmet and Trey McBride, Donald Parham, and some other Yahoo. It's just not working out for me at tight end this year. And
you traded Travis Kelce for.
And I traded Travis Kelce to, there's a lot more context to that. It's still, I don't like that trade in hindsight, but it's not as bad as it sounds.
You traded Travis Kelce for Cole Kmet. I just want everyone to know that was the dummy move you made. Yeah. So there's.
Yeah, straight up 1 for 1.
1 for 1. It was not 1 for 1. There's more to it.
But he would be great. I would love Taysom Hill at tight end. And you know what? If I was in that league, if I picked him up off waivers last week, had him, and he was saving my tight end position, and then you guys were like, all right, we're voting to make it where you can't play him as a tight end. Oh,
it would burn. Well, to be fair, he's not currently rostered in the league we're voting on it. So, and the vote's going to go up later tonight officially. But like I said, I've already spoken to enough people. The votes are already in place. So it just needs to be official on the league thread. But where we stand right now is that if he's rostered somewhere, you can't make a rule change. Like, I want to be clear. If he's already on a team, you can't go and screw an owner over because he had the foresight to have him on your team. But if this guy's not rostered right now, y'all need to set some ground rules before somebody blows up their fab or blows a waiver priority on him. That's only fair to everybody involved.
Yeah, I think the way I would phrase it is I suggest that you do that if you're into like having a league that doesn't have a bunch of tomfoolery. If you're a bunch of crazy degenerates that like maximum chaos, keep Taysom Hill in, make him eligible to play as a kicker. I don't know.
Plays about as many snaps at kicker as he does tight end.
Yeah. Anyway, so chaotic week. That Raiders-Chiefs game to close off the week. What a classic. As those matchups seem to constantly be. Early on, Patrick Mahomes he would just dump all over the Raiders. And the last 2 years or so, it's been more of that classic interdivisional rivalry, blah, blah. And this whole week though was up and down. Lots of nonsensical performances, I can continue giving you coach speak about this week and not saying anything substantial. Why don't we instead dive in to just a few waivers, and then we can talk a little bit about a couple player scenarios that are tied to waivers, mainly up in the Northwest.
Sure.
So I'm not going to talk about Kenneth Walker right now because he shouldn't be available in your league. But as Jeff and I know personally,
he's available in a bunch of leagues. Like
he's available in some leagues. Taysom Hill, we just talked about him. He should be the top waiver priority if he's eligible as a tight end. What do you think running back wise? Do you have, like, off the top of your head, anyone you've looked at? You want me to give you guys, Jeff, to pick from? But I was just curious, like, who, if you had to put money right now to fix your running back position and it couldn't be Kenneth Walker, who are you going for?
It's going to burn the deepest parts of my soul.
I'm trying to set you up for something.
Give me Tevin Coleman. Just can't stand this guy.
Yep.
It's one of those situations where it's not. He's never lacked the talent. He's just always lacked the consistency. Like, he had a couple decent years in Atlanta. He was supposed to be the next big thing in San Francisco. That didn't work out. Goes to the Jets. Doesn't do anything there. Now he's back in San Francisco and he's splitting time with Jeff Wilson. Look, if he doesn't get 2 touchdowns this past week, he's only got 9 points.
Yep.
But with the 49ers, they're a good football team. They're in a position where, they're playing Atlanta this week. They're probably going to be running the ball a lot again, especially late. I mean, Tevin Coleman stands to score again. He could score multiple times again. And there's a real world where we could say, okay, well, Jeff Wilson's got a touchdown and Tevin Coleman's got a touchdown. And, you still have 2 more passing, TDs. Like that. That's a real world situation for these Niners. You have to have Tevin Coleman right now. I'm not going out of my way to spend all my fab, but if I'm really hurting for a running back, I'm not afraid to spend up, 20, 25%, and you have to know your league, right? I can sit here and spitball 25%, assuming, other teams are fine and whatever else and what have you. But if you know that you and 2 other teams are hurting at running back, spend up and go get them, because you may not get another opportunity like this to get a guy for a few weeks who you can plug in and give you starting level numbers as an RB2.
Right. Well, I think that I can get down with that. I'm looking at.
I hate it.
I mean,
sorry, I hate my own
this,
take.
though. Everything you just said, I'm equally as excited about Tevin Coleman, like, for the rest of this season as I would be as trying to go after Mike Boone last week. It's kind of a situation where I'm like,
okay, I like Coleman more than I liked Mike Boone.
Yeah, I don't know that I do. But that's totally arbitrary, and it's mostly just the Niners. Like, I feel like it's I don't know. It'll be Tevin Coleman for a little while, and then it'll be someone else, and that'll be the next hot waiver ad. So basically, if you want to go 0 RB and make one of your starting running backs a 20% every 3-week free agent acquisition, like, pickup, you just make the Niners backfield your, like, 3rd running back. And then every 3 or 4 weeks you spend on the next guy.
There's a couple other things you might consider too. And I think we're going to start to see this change a little bit. The Rams running backs are being dropped like everywhere. Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers are both getting dropped all over the place. I'm out on Akers. His game was entirely too predicated on, the kind of quick twitch lateral movement. The Achilles injuries really sapped a lot of that. Darrell Henderson is still a good player. I like him a lot. I expect him to see some volume down the stretch here. And as the Rams realize that Matt Stafford cannot play behind this O-line, they're going to have to run the football just to keep defenses honest. Mm-hmm. So if, by that code, by you're saying, hey, every 3 weeks, let's go get another guy, Henderson's a guy that could be on your waiver wire in a few weeks, if he's not already. Tevin Coleman obviously is sitting there right now. You're going to have some other teams and other players that might have a guy that gets dropped or something else or what have you. I'm just, like, trying to go off the top of my head here, and I'm thinking to myself, like, who else might be available? Obviously, Kenneth Walker's a guy this week that's available, but I'm not afraid of looking at some of those other situations where a guy that we really liked in the offseason process is suddenly available on the waiver wire.
Yeah, I could see that. And I think that, well, while you were closing out your statement, I'll be honest, I didn't want to think about Tevin Coleman anymore, so I moved on mentally to the next player that I wanted to talk about.
I'm going to move on mentally to my stack of cured meats over here.
Yeah, well, so here's the thing. We're entering that part of the season where, yeah, like if you're going to be somebody that's going to make a splash play in waivers, and let's say you're either in a rotating waivers league where you, like once you use your claim, you move to the back of the line until you move up based on weekly results.
Mhm.
Those are old school. New school is to have a budget. You're going to use most of your budget is probably going to be, if you haven't done it already, in the next 4 weeks. And one of those areas that it's kind of a crapshoot, and there's a decent amount of people that are straight up going into seasons now planning to stream this position. It's tight end. We just talked about the Taysom Hill scenario, right? So if we want to maybe sneaky play here, jump in when everyone's focusing on the tight end Taysom Hill situation, and look at some of these deeper tight end plays. There is a guy that hasn't done anything yet that might very well be able to carve out a relevant role this year for fantasy. And he's a rookie. And can you guess who it is yet?
Is it Cade Otton?
It's not Cade Otton.
Oh.
I
Is
don't
it Isaiah Likely?
Nope. I do like Likely, though.
Is it... I don't know.
It's in Denver, so you probably wouldn't have ever guessed it because their offense sucks.
You telling me you're still on the Greg Dulcich thing?
No, check this out. So he's coming back. So if you look at his timeline, I'm just going to lay it out for a second. For context, this is a Ronnie Evans deep take, right? I'm ignoring like the top 10 options and just saying, let's go deep. Greg Dulcich was, up until he got hurt, blowing the Broncos camp out of the water. You can say that doesn't matter. It has to matter for something at least. He got hurt. He's kind of been gone ever since then. He's come back. Reports are already that he has been, for the last week or so, like as he's gotten healthier, looked incredible, yada, yada. It's probably a lot of like beat writers speak. They're also desperate for a positive story down there right now.
Anything. Yeah.
So I'm acknowledging all of that. However, if you look at this team and if you have watched these Broncos games, Russell Wilson is throwing an alarming amount of balls to his tight ends. And he's throwing these balls to guys named Eric Saubert and Albert O. I'm not going to pronounce his last name, but that guy is proving to not be what we all hoped he would be. And Eric Saubert is kind of a guy who we know he doesn't have an elite ceiling. Jerry Jeudy's not running through things the way that we had hoped. He's not meshing, I would say, with Russell Wilson. I think they're both kind of playing fine in their own right, but not on the same page. It's been Courtland Sutton and tight ends on that team right now. And Greg Dulcich is, I would say, if Albert O's not going to work out on this team, he's not going to mesh with this new offense, with what they have going on, and he certainly really hasn't so far outside of 2 or 3 passes. Greg Dulcich, the first pick that this franchise made, with a franchise that's looking for a spark, if Russell Wilson figures out how to somehow be like slightly more relevant, because he's throwing 250 yards a game right now, and just get a couple balls in the end zone, it's probably going to go to Courtland Sutton. Or
Russell Wilson's getting dropped in leagues.
That's another thing to talk about.
Single QB leagues all over the place, and for good reason. Right now, the Denver Broncos offense is one of the most dysfunctional in the NFL. And this starts at the top. The coaching has been bad. And nobody can convince me that they're coming out and doing great play calling and it's all on Russ. That's not the case. There is issues with play calling. Things don't jive. They're not setting up the right plays. Being a play caller is like being a boxer. You've got to be out here setting up your punches to go ahead and be able to make that big knockout shot so you can go ahead and score, right? Set up that big play. They're not doing that. The execution is poor, and a lot of the individual reads, not just by the quarterback, but the guys up front, center's supposed to be on the blitz pickups. He's missing calls. Your wide receivers are missing secondary reads, and they're ending up in the wrong locations on option routes. And you can see it when Russ airmails one to the sideline and Courtland Sutton's running a post route for some reason.
Right.
Running wide open out to the perimeter. There's all kinds of little instances like this where these players are ill-prepared. And I find it insanely difficult to believe that a player like Greg Dulcich, who was a good but not great prospect, whose best comp is probably Owen Daniels, not a freak athlete, reliable player, reliable upside on some level, is going to suddenly come in and become fantasy relevant in this offense. The guy hasn't been on the field. He doesn't know where to be, like the other guys that are veterans here. And he's going to come in and make an impact. Get out of here with that. Greg Dulcich is probably a 2023 thing. If you're in a dynasty league, I could see you going out and wanting to go buy a guy like Dulcich and stash him. Like, okay, I can get behind that because you could probably get him for nothing. But for 2022, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking to myself, is that helping me win a championship this year? I mean, tight end's been insanely volatile. Don't get me wrong. And we've had, 2 tight ends actually finish in the top 10 to 12 tight ends every single week, and that's Andrews and Kelsey. I don't think anybody else has actually made it in the top 10 to 12 every single week this year.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where if you look at the tight end landscape right now, obviously the Taysom Hill thing. If you're picking up guys that are available right now, it's going to be like Hayden Hurst, Hunter Henry.
Give me guys that have some reliability that I know what they are.
Yeah, and I think that the problem is that there's just not anything that's been reliable so far, or at least if it is reliable, it's not anything that's going to win you games. Which is, there's something to that. It's valuable to know that a player like, let's say Jason Witten, the final few years of his career, that guy was never pretty, but you kind of like, all right, I know he's not going to lose me the game. I'll get 9 to 12 points because he's going to go out there and catch 4 or 5 balls for 40 yards every week.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know.
The Broncos offense needs to show a little bit of relevance first. I need to see them show something. Yeah, that's like a dynasty take where you want to stash somebody. But if we're talking to folks right now that are trying to win in 2022, I'm more inclined to go get Cade Otton. This was a guy that was targeted. This is one of your guys from the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
That Otton was a dude who was targeted 5 times this week. He had 4 catches, something like that. I remember looking up at the scoreboard. I was watching the Bucs game. It was one of the games I was flipping through. And I pulled it up and I was like, yo, look at Cade Otton coming out here and getting some run. Kyle Rudolph ain't it. And I kind of in the same vein as the Dulcich thing where I just don't believe it's going to be a thing this year. Julio Jones is probably not going to be the Julio we thought he was.
No.
And I was pretty well fading him to start anyway, but Godwin has been nicked up. He came back from the injury early and he seems to be off the field every single game with some kind of ailment. Mike Evans is getting beat up every week. He just gets mugged constantly. Otton's just kind of carving out a little role. That's a guy at tight end where I'm like, that could be the type of guy where he's not a league winner. But by week 10, 11, 12, 13, we could say, hey, Cade Otton's had 6 straight weeks of being in the top 12 to 14 tight ends. Maybe he's just reliable, and that's what he is. He's not Gronk, right? But if Brady trusts him, he's going to be peppered with targets. That's a great thing for PPR.
Well, I would say that if I was going to pick 2 like super, super low ownership rookies right now to pick up, one of them would be Wandale. And there's more to that. I'm not going to try and regurgitate everything that I was looking at yesterday, but he has the opportunities there. Everything is like in place for him to start emerging. It's just a question of if it will, but the team's playing better than expected, and they don't have a wide receiver right now that's really emerged. And I think if you look at that team, it's what we talked about in the offseason. He complements the offense very well. If someone's going to emerge, it's probably going to be him because it's clearly not going to be Tony this year. So there's that guy. But yeah, sure. I guess Cade Otton could be one. I'm still going to stick my foot down on Greg Dulcich. I have a feeling that by the end of the season, he's going to be startable in fantasy.
You just love him because of his mustache. That's really where we're at with this guy. He's getting mustache.
No, I think I just like him better as a prospect than you just in general. That's fine. I mean, you and I generally agree on most things, so it's good to have a couple that we are not on the same page on. I'm talking and reading. There's nothing else I love from low ownership rookies. The other one maybe would be like a Khalil Shakir type guy, but I don't know about that.
No, I'm kind of out on that front. There's the thing with Dulcich, and then we'll move on. We got to move back on to running backs on some level because we have not talked to Kenny Walker yet.
Yep.
When it comes to Dulcich, he's a reliable. I expect his career arc to be a reliable player. Like I don't hate the prospect. What I hate is the fantasy upside. And so when we think about this, probably gonna be one of those better football than he is for fantasy kind of a player. And, he made a lot of big plays at UCLA and just running through zones and making catches and doing run after the catch and all that. And I'm with that. But he's not a special athlete. He's not hyper twitched up. He doesn't fit that profile of a lot of these kind of elite tight ends we're starting to see emerge. at least physically elite, right? This is a dude where if this Broncos offense can show some level of competence, he could become a reliable player where maybe he does see 5 or 6, grabs a week. But to get there, he's probably going to need 8 targets, which means you're going to need Judy to completely evaporate and for Cortland Sutton to become less than number 1 in Russ's eyes.
I can get down with that. You would need more than to pass more in general as well.
Well, right. And generally speaking, when tight ends are good, the running game is good. And that running game is a massive question mark on it right now. Mike Boone, he ain't it. He's not going to be the guy long term. Melvin Gordon, watching him carry the football, it's like watching somebody carry a greased pig. Like, it just looks so uncomfortable for him and everybody involved. I'm constantly expecting it to end up on the turf. So I just look at this and I'm thinking to myself, I'm staying away from Denver. If I've got their parts and pieces, I'm holding Judy and I'm trying to move Sutton just on the idea that he's the one and the only one Russ wants to throw it to. And then I want out of that offense. Just get me out of there.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I don't want to talk about the Broncos anymore.
Yeah.
So we have, and I have an offer. All right. I will donate $20. You know what? Let's get really crazy.
Oh,
They need
God,
$25.
Jeez.
If somebody goes back to the post rookie draft episode and then the running back preview episode and sends me the clip.
You just don't want to track down the clip.
Because I don't want to. Because I said it, we talked about it multiple times, and I sat there earlier today and started pulling up our old stuff. And I'm going to be real. I don't like watching my own content. It's not my favorite thing.
I don't like my own voice, so I get it.
Yeah. Well, I just know everything I say is perfect. So, what do I need to watch it for,
Oh, God, I think I'm going to be sick.
But here's the deal. If you watch this show during the offseason, Jeff and I both harped on the Seattle running back situation, how much we liked Kenneth Walker versus the consensus. We were there with Kenneth Walker early. He, like Sky Moore, has been a guy that's kind of not really been proving us right for, the average Joe, but it's pretty easy to explain. He hasn't had the touches, right? All of a sudden, the starting running back goes down. Rashad Penny's out, and he's out for the season. And if you go back to the episode right before the season started and the episode right after the draft, the timeline that Jeff and I laid out for everyone was draft both of them because they're both being drafted later than they should be. Ride Rashad Penny for the first quarter of the season and then sell him. Because he is not going to make it through the season with the workload they're going to start off giving him. And that is just based on historical context, also an expectation based on just how Pete Carroll utilizes his backs. Pete Carroll runs running backs into the ground. It's not just Kyle Shanahan in the NFC West that likes to take his running backs.
Mike Tomlin runs his running backs squarely into the ground. See Le'Veon Bell.
Right.
Touches Najee had last year.
Yeah, a lot of teams do that. And in the NFC West, Kyle Shanahan steals the attention away from Pete. But I can't think of the last running back that's played for Seattle that didn't have constant injury issues, including Marshawn Lynch. The last 3 or 4 years he was there, his back was broken half the time.
Sure. Well,
and that's not to say you can predict all of that. I'm not going to get into all that right now. But you could say Rashad Penny isn't going to make it. This guy has had everything from a thumb to a sore thigh to homesickness. In terms of missing time, in terms of in camp to practice, to play.
We know Penny's not it. His season's done. Let's not talk about him. Let's talk about how explosive Kenny Walker looked, though.
Kenneth Walker is that dude. Breece Hall looks like that dude. And all we tried to tell people this offseason is hyped as you want to get about Breece Hall. If you're going to love either of these guys for fantasy, you're probably overhyping them in the first place. But you should be looking at Kenneth Walker at least the same as Breece Hall. They're that types of talent. And I'm telling you, it's going to happen. You saw a little peek of it here. You've seen a little peek of it here and there throughout the year. But look out this upcoming week. If you held on to him on your team, good job. If he's on waivers, your league's full of dummies.
I absolutely love Kenneth Walker. And I love Breece Hall too, right? I'm an Iowa State guy, so I absolutely love Breece Hall. I didn't see Breece being kind of that, Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, elite level prospect where I'm like, this guy's a foundation back and he's going to crush it at the next level. He's looked really good the last couple of weeks. I think as a product of just being generally underused, and there's not a lot of film on him. What I really want to see is how he performs in 3 or 4 weeks when teams finally have a stack of film and how he's being deployed and how he's being used. Because what was really telling is, though, even though he had a goal line touchdown and he had that really long catch, they still pulled him off the field from Michael Carter on a second rushing touchdown near the goal line.
Right.
And that's going to be something that is endlessly frustrating for anybody who's rostering Carter and rostering Breece Hall. So the thing is, like, I liked Walker more because of the draft capital. You had to go and spend a 3 or a 4 on Breece Hall, but you were able to get Kenneth Walker 10 rounds later. And you're getting, at least in terms of the back half of the season, now you're going to get the same player. And that's where you have to try and find that value. And we tried to kind of hype him up and say, hey, look, he can catch the ball. He wasn't asked to do it at Michigan State. Not relevant. Fact is, he can do it. He showed it off at the combine. He showed it off in the workouts. Kid's a gamer. He can ball, and he is explosive. Breece Hall looks good. He's very, very selective. We'll say he's a patient runner at the line of scrimmage. Sometimes I feel like he kind of hops around a little too much. Kenneth Walker hits the hole like a rocket, and that is going to make all the difference. This kid's not going to take a ton of negative plays. Obviously he can catch the ball and get going, but his first step is lightning quick. You need to have him on your roster. He's the number 1 waiver ad this week. And, if you have him, you're doing a happy dance right now. And if you're overloaded on running backs, dude, it's a good problem to have. But now's your chance to go ahead and say, hey, look, I got 5 legit running backs. I'm going to take one of these guys. I'm going to trade him for an elite receiver right now. Yeah. Because you can, and you're going to have all the ammunition in the world, whether you trade Walker, which I don't really advise. But if you say you're sitting here and you've got, I don't know, Kamara and, Walker, Ramondre Stevenson, and all these guys that are going to suddenly play this week, now you've got something, right? You've got trade chips to work with, because this is the time of year to really solidify your roster.
Can I just throw in one thing?
Sure.
It's not relevant to waivers, but I was really, really worried about Kamara this year. And the man put up almost 30 points despite the fact that Taysom Hill scored 40. So he's going to be fine.
As somebody who's rostering Kamara in a very important league, I was infuriated watching Taysom Hill run all over the field, and I just was losing my mind. But
Kamara got back, and even though he got vultured, like 4 opportunities were vultured from him, he still put up a league-winning type week, above average.
It was really good, and I think we all know Kamara's good. He's a good player. I'm not, again, another player where it's like I'm in that mode right now of kind of flipping running backs. I think it's that time of the year where I kind of want to get my hands on the Ramondre Stevensons and the Kenneth Walkers. These are guys that they're getting the opportunity. I don't think those guys are coming off the field the rest of the year, and now it's a chance to go ahead and take those higher volume guys and move them out.
That's another one. I'll throw $25 out there again. I'll donate it to a charity of your choice. If you want to donate, you can pick the weirdest charity you want. I don't care. I'll donate it.
Be careful with that. You've had some real misses on some of the things.
Well, listen, as long as if you would be willing to tell your grandmother that I donated in your name, let's keep it there.
Okay.
If you can go find it, Jeff and I also sat there and said over and over, and actually you and I debated it a little bit at first, and then the ships aligned. And full team, full steam, Ramondre season was going to happen at some point this year. And it was a little sketchy to start the season off for sure. But Damian Harris was being used as a guy that was either going to get traded or Bill Belichick was like, see you later at the end of the year. And we knew that. That was baked in with Ramondre. But Ramondre is now going to be the guy for at least 3 weeks.
Sure.
And Bill Belichick is a stubborn, shifty dude. So I have a feeling, Jeff, that there will be 2 or 3 games this season remaining on the schedule where Damian Harris makes Ramondre Stevenson owners pull their hair out. But other than those games, I think he's going to be a stud.
I suspect that when he gets in the field, he's going to show how much more effective he is, not just in the run game, but in the pass game. And it's going to make it really hard for Damian to get back on the field. The thing is, Bill loves those big, powerful backs that are useful in a lot of different ways. You got to remember what he did with LeGarrette Blount. LeGarrette Blount couldn't find success really anywhere else. It was only in New England, and he had that massive, it was like a 17 touchdown season or something he had where it was bonkers.
He's just bowling ball that season. It was nuts.
And Ramondre has a similar power the way he runs. If anything, I think he's got a little bit more lateral agility, and he's got better hands. This is a player that is functional on all 3 downs, whereas Damian Harris has shown a propensity to get nicked up. He's not exactly an ace in the passing game. He's a willing-ish blocker, but he's not good at it. I think Stevenson's going to keep Harris off the field, and this is it. Harris won't be in New England next year. It'll be the Stevenson show through and through.
I'm with you on that. And that was the dynasty prediction that came from the Chop Shop this offseason. I'm doing a lot of like, haha, we told you so this episode. I do apologize for that.
Well, we hope that folks will go back and watch some of this stuff and then start to realize, well, hey, these guys they're kind of getting out in front of it a little bit. Like, it sounds ludicrous right now, but then you look back in 3 or 4 weeks, you're like, oh yeah, those two knuckleheads actually were pretty close to the pin. And that's kind of I guess the mode of where we're at right now.
Yeah, and it's a podcast where we talk like we're drinking beers, but neither of us have actual beers in our hands. Instead, the type of
cured meats
inebriation that we have going on is exhaustion from working all day. So
it's true.
It's good.
True.
Let's move on to another position for waivers. We'll talk about it for a couple minutes, and then we can close out with one or two other things.
Okay.
But if I want to go pull up, and I'm not going to go pull up my list because we hit on the 4 guys I had listed anyway. I am pulling up CBS Sports Fantasy Football right now.
Why are you doing this to me?
Because I want to debate.
I'm going to pull up a list of my own here because I take notes.
All right, so I'm not going to say anything about CBS, anything about where these guys are ranked. I'm just going to give you these 3 quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Which one would you make your top priority? Carson Wentz?
No.
Geno Smith?
Yes.
Jimmy Garoppolo?
No.
Geno Smith. All right, good job. You passed that test. Geno's the number 1 guy.
Geno's got Arizona, the Chargers, the Giants, Arizona again.
The Geno trade is the best thing in the NFL this year. I love it.
Dude, this is bananas to me. The Tampa Bay matchup in Week 10 immediately followed by a bye kind of stinks. So if you have another quarterback that you can plug in for Weeks 10 and 11, I have zero concerns plugging in Geno basically the rest of the year. The only weeks I want to avoid Geno right now, 10, Tampa Bay. I don't love that matchup for him. The bye week, Week 11, and then San Francisco in Week 15. San Francisco was his kryptonite. He only had 5 fantasy points, and he's still the QB6 on the year in 6-point passing touchdown leagues. He is finding DK all over the field. He's finding Lockett all over the field. The guy is throwing absolute dimes everywhere. I don't care what fantasy analyst is out there trying to, trumpet whatever horn they have. Nobody was on his performance being this good. Nobody.
Yep.
And it was funny. You shared a thing on Twitter about an exchange we were having with our buddy Jordan Vanek over at 33rd Team.
Yeah.
And you shared a little snippet of my Scott Fishbowl relative value chart. And we had Geno in there QB 15. I suspect that was pretty far ahead of market for May.
It was so far ahead of market that the first reaction on the rest of that conversation was, that's not correct. It's got to be an error. Blah, blah,
I was like, that
blah.
can't be
We'll
right.
go back and correct it.
Yeah, that was literally the response. I'm not taking any credit for that. No way.
Don't lie, baby.
But that's just it though. And when you go back, you're like, oh, wait a minute. Actually, there's a lot of that because his own player efficiency was actually pretty decent in his last several starts as a backup. When he had to come in and play, he played really well. Well, so he's shown his flashes.
I would shout out like Jordan again. He does amazing with DFS stuff over at 33rd. But Jeff and I had a little group chat going through Scott Fishbowl, and Geno was a debate that went on off and on for like a week and a half. It was just kind of like, where do we rank him? Because you initially I brought that in there. I didn't have anything to say. I had nothing to bring.
I just laughed it off. I was like,
I
screwed up.
So Jordan, like a month later, Jordan came back, and if I remember it correctly, Jordan had been saying things about like, this might be real with Geno, and you and I had talked about it. We're like, I don't know, like it might be real. I don't know. It seems too stupid to put my stamp on it. We never did. I could never claim it, but it's so funny that the numbers did say it.
Yeah, the numbers were there, but here's the thing. And again, anybody who told you Geno Smith would be a top 12 quarterback this year was full of shit. I mean, I'm sorry. I just, but fact is the guy's balling out. The matchups are in place. I've got him, I think it's my QB4 this week. Let me refer to the Gridiron Ratings offensive start sit charts here and see what I've got going on here for Geno.
While you look that up, this is what everyone missed on Geno. You could take a pretty average quarterback, and with you could take a pretty average quarterback, and with the way that offensive line is playing and the amount of talent that team has at its disposal for a quarterback, you would have automatically said, well, he's going to be carried to like a quarterback 2 at worst performance. And then Gino's playing at and maybe even above his ceiling right now. I don't think it's real life for him either. Like it's la la land in the Northwest for everyone. But yeah, I don't know. It's gonna get tough for him in a couple games that are coming up, and teams will get better. People have more tape on him. I think people are going to start to realize that they're really just running what they did with Russ, but Gino's making quicker decisions. It's the same offense.
There's already 5 weeks worth of film. The Saints had 4 weeks of film and couldn't figure it out, and Gino torched them.
Yeah,
usually you need 3 weeks. I mean, so NFL teams usually use 3 to 4 weeks worth of film. And when I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, well, week 1, who'd they have? They had Denver. No, Denver's dysfunctional. Okay. Week 2, they had San Francisco. San Francisco shut them down. That's probably the best defense in football right now, even with their injuries. You had Atlanta. Oh, Atlanta's trash. Detroit. Well, Detroit, their defense hasn't stopped anybody either. New Orleans couldn't figure it out by watching all that film to figure out how to stop them either. New Orleans is a pretty good defense. You can't sit here and tell me that they're trash. So the fact is he went 268-3. He went bonkers. He's had, let's see, 2 touchdowns, no touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, 2 passing, 1 rushing, and then 3 touchdowns. Dude, if you got a guy who's getting you about 3 TDs a week, he needs to be starting. Go get Gino, plug him in. If you're in a 1 QB league, he's probably going to slide to the back half of that waiver group. You probably don't have to spend any money on him because everyone else is going to be gun shy. I really think most of your league mates might be like, it's Geno Smith. Why am I spending money on him? So you can probably throw just like $1 or $2 at him, and done.
You know what, Gino? Let's just go ahead and rhyme our way out. Last comment of the episode. We'll be back for getting defensive here in a second.
That's where we get all our offensive questions.
Number 1 waiver pickup in leagues that are real life, where Kenneth Walker isn't available because he shouldn't be, is Eno Benjamin. If he's available, put him on your team. I don't think I talked about it on the show, but I want to talk smack. I'm in multiple leagues with Jeff where I own Eno, and he doesn't because I had him before the season started, and now it looks like he might be a running back 3. Good for me. All right.
We'll see.
I'm just trying to add some comical commentary, but I am serious. Eno Benjamin looks like I would add him. Do you want to talk about it for a minute?
I'd rather have Tevin Coleman.
How about $10 charity bet?
No, here's what we're looking at. Arizona is almost as functional as Denver. And so Kyler Murray has looked better than Russ, but that offense doesn't look good either. I'm sorry, they just don't look that good. So I'm not sure I want to get behind any of that.
Jeff, I have a solution.
Fire Cliff Kingsbury.
From now until Thanksgiving.
Okay.
We'll track Geno Smith and Tevin Coleman. Whoever scores the most points, the other person.
You mean Eno Benjamin and Tevin Coleman?
Excuse me, Eno Benjamin.
Tevin Coleman's going to be off the field when Eli Mitchell comes back.
Damn it.
Yeah, nice try. Yeah, Scammy McScammerson. Something wrong.
Well, folks, he pays attention, but there's an example of how you can get by the tacos in your league, mate. Or in your league.
Look, if you're really desperate, you can go after Eno, but I don't love it. This is one of those situations where it's like you've got to be really heavily focused on these guys that are going to help you win a week or 2 right now, because these are the wins that are going to help you get to the playoffs. And once you're in the playoffs, all bets are off. So go try and get yourself into Tevin Coleman, as much as it hurts my soul to say that. Go get yourself into
You're not worried about James Conner?
I didn't love James Conner to start with. This is a guy he's never been healthy.
But here's the thing. Eno is the dude. He's the dude if Connor's not playing or if Connor's being not utilized.
Yeah, but that offense is so dysfunctional. They can't figure out how to get it to guys that are supremely talented, like Rondale Moore and Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, those are fair points.
So, I feel like the vanilla play calling from Cliff Kingsbury is what really limits that run game, and the fact the O-line's pretty terrible. Neither one of those guys is special. The run game in San Francisco, they're schemed up in such a way that they're special. Tevin Coleman's going to be useful. Jeff Wilson will be useful. Eli Mitchell comes back. He's going to be more than functional again. That offense is where you want to be invested. Kenny Walker is going to be a bell cow the rest of the year. That's the guy. That's where I think we should be focusing our energy. If Ramondre happens to be available somehow in your league, that's a guy. But hell, I might be going out and trying to make some trades too, because somebody's out there sitting on some combination of Josh Jacobs, CEH, Tony Pollard, and they probably have 2 or 3 other running backs, and they can't start them all. And this is a chance for you to probably leverage one of your roster strengths to go get one of these other running backs that can provide some upside to your roster. While everyone else is chasing their tail on waivers, it's time to sneak in and make a trade that helps your starting lineup.
I'll close out with one more thing, and I'm just trying to like I said last week, I'm trying to just like throw money at charities for the rest of the season. Little tiny increments. If you could send me a picture of a league mate you know or a team that you have where you have 3 or more of these 4 running backs: Tony Pollard, Chase Edmonds, Miles Sanders, and Josh Jacobs.
I might have one actually. I'm pulling up Sleeper right now.
All right. So I might have to disclude you and me because I have one.
How about Jacobs, Barkley, CEH, Pollard, Harris?
Right.
Oh, and Javante's on the IR.
All right. That's a disgusting running back core. So there with the number of people that play fantasy football this year, there are at least 5,000 people out there that went 0 RB, like a bunch of ding dongs, and ended up with Clyde, Miles Sanders, Jacobs, and Pollard, and are crushing their leagues.
I've got a co-host here in studio today. This is Tucker. He can't hear you because I'm wearing headphones. Oh gosh, he's turning the whole computer around. Oh,
hey, you know what, Tucker? Check out this outro video, bro.
Ready, Tucker?
Nope.
You gonna wave at Ronnie and say bye, Ronnie.
They have no idea where we are, who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from, or who we are, where we're coming from.